We cannot continue disconnecting the two. This is part of the new world order that's emerging, that we are bio-spiritually connected to the earth, and our financial and economic systems are a subsystem of the planet Earth. We've got to get this piece. Because the earth, in the last analysis, is our only real capital. Financial capital is just a function, a subsystem of natural capital. And so if all that we do with these massive loans to bail out the banks and the automotive industry is to try to recreate that old economic system, we will have missed a tremendous opportunity to make this reconnection, to usher in a new world order that's based on our fundamental relationship with the planet. An old order is already over, friends. That's my sense of things. It's done. It is finished. The question is how long it will take us to recognize this and make some fundamental changes in our way of being. Leonard Cohen, our national poet and prophet, got it just right in his song, The Future. Things are going to slide in all directions. There won't be nothing you can measure anymore. The blizzard of the world has crossed the threshold, and it's overturned the order of the soul. These are the times. This is the season. We can't continue doing what we've been doing, economically or on a planetary basis. The disparity between the very rich and the very poor will issue in increased violence. It will summon up a virtual blizzard that will overturn the order of the soul. And we cannot buy our way out of the collapsing order, because overconsumption, we now know, is the big part of the problem. Fancy new investment vehicles will not get us there, friends. Only the emergence of a new humanity, a new and higher order of the soul, will be able to save us. That is where we are right now. The parable of the talents spoke to the early church about how to deal with this interim period between Jesus' death and their belief in his imminent return to inaugurate the reign of God. They were waiting for his return. And they needed to know, how should we wait? The master leaves, but not before entrusting his estate to his servants, and he gives differing amounts of money to each servant according to their ability. The first two immediately take what has been given them, and they double what's been given them. They trade it. Pleases the master greatly. They enter into his joy. The third, however, is afraid. And his fear causes him to bury his one talent. At least he won't lose it. He's hanging on for dear life. And when the master returns, he's not happy. Clearly, this is saying, do not wait around, early church, like this third servant. Do not be passive in the midst of the ensuing calamity. And the metaphorical punishment in the parable is harsh. His single talent is taken from him and given to the one who had originally been given the 5 talents. And then Matthew ends with a typical macabre twist of Matthew. This guy is thrown into outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew must have been the life of the party. I'm telling you. This is a metaphorical presentation, friends, intended to dramatically contrast the joy of those who acted properly in the in-between times and the one who acted improperly, passively, out of fear. The parable is not a justification of laissez-faire economics. The G20 is meeting, as we gather now, to decide how to regulate the market, not how to give it freer rein. And it's not about trade being the salvation of humanity, although there's nothing intrinsically wrong with economic trade, obviously. The parable is about how the church should act in these in-between days and seasons. The times when one world order is collapsing and the new one is painfully being born. By the time this parable was written down, it was clear that the early church could be waiting a long, long time. And what was required was creative, resolute action in the midst of the crisis, not passivity. What was required was a multiplication of what had been entrusted to the church by Jesus of Nazareth, a vision of a world in right relationship with God, a world that did not forget the orphan and the widow and the homeless person, a community that practiced forgiveness and compassion when all else was falling apart, a church that intentionally fostered an alternative community that could withstand the coming blizzard by simply caring for one another and for their community. What's clearly unacceptable according to this parable is to be paralyzed by fear, to do nothing. Fear causes isolation. It causes us to dig a pit in the backyard of our life and not only bury our possessions there in order to protect them and hunker down and keep them safe, it tempts us to jump into the pit ourselves, followed by an ethic of every person for him or herself. How many of you saw the film Blindness? Not too many. It's worth seeing. In the film, a virus infects all of humanity and causes all but one to go blind. And in the ensuing fear and panic, anarchy reigns. People regress to subhuman coping behaviors. But this one woman retains her sight and keeps it a secret from all the others. And she leads a small community who are able to survive the crisis with dignity by maintaining a contract of decency and of humanity. Human beings move in and out of this state of metaphorical blindness, especially at times and especially in seasons such as this one. But the one vision that remains constant for those of us who gather here on Sunday mornings is the vision of the Christ. It is a vision that actually expands when the rest of the world is tempted to narrow down their vision and focus on our own self-interests. In the midst of isolation, the Christ sees a vision of universal, of radical interconnectedness, not isolation. In the midst of being tempted to make decisions based on this narrow self-interest, Christ is the presence of sacred wisdom, helping us to make decisions that include more and more people in our circle of concern. When fear is the virus that causes us to disconnect even from God, Christ leads us beside still waters and calms our souls. Paul writes about this Christ as the one who holds all things together. Christ, our liberator, our guide through the blizzard. The one who reminds us that the worse things get, the better off we'll be if we turn to each other as servants of one another and of the world. The Christ can be our vision until the blindness of fear passes. And then it is our time to act, to take what's been entrusted to us, all the goodness of the heart of the divine, and trade it out for a better world. It's possible. Yes, we can. We're called to be children of light, even in the midst of these dark times. Friends, let us enter into the joy of the Christ. May it be so.